Woj, thanks for joining us. Chris Mannix just alerted us that we've been mispronouncing your last name. Can you help us with that?
Chris should be focusing on his own pronunciation of names, events. Wojnarowski, Woj. You're right on it, Dan.
Okay, all right. But Mannix was scolding us. This is a guy who did a feature on Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then he mispronounced it according to the Bucks play-by-play voice. So that's why we were a little nervous when Mannix started to correct us here, Woj.
I've only ever heard Mannix call him the Greek freak. I never even remember him trying to pronounce it.
All right. So we got that squared away. Now, is there a chance you would hang up on us if there's a big enough trade? If you got a call from somebody, is there a chance you could hang?
Yes. There's not a chance. There's a guarantee, Dan, that I would. But I don't. But we're usually these days have a rhythm to, like in my history with trade deadline.
Yeah.
they have a rhythm to them, and this is the point in the morning where I still think teams are sort of recalibrating. Talks that went on last night are kind of being re-engaged now. But I think there'll be, I don't know that there'll be a lot of deals today, but I think there'll be a lot of discussion, a lot of talk down to the wire. And, it just sometimes it takes one deal to trigger a bunch of others to happen.
What would surprise you, shock you today?
I don't know if it would shock me if Paul George or Jimmy Butler were to move. But I'd probably still be a little bit surprised. I think that Boston's conversations with both Chicago and Indiana have been pretty cursory to this point. Now, it could pick up today. They've talked, but there hasn't been really any traction or progress. Now, part of that's going to be if Boston starts to put more into a potential deal and give Chicago, Indiana more to think about. But both the Pacers and the Bulls, they're not in a position where they have to move these guys, where they're going to be free agents this summer. Jimmy Butler's under contract going forward a couple of years, and Paul George is under contract through 18. So Boston's going to have to blow away those teams and any other team that wants to get involved with those kinds of stars because they can just sort of re-engage, whether it's Paul George or Jimmy Butler, those teams can re-engage again at the draft when they know exactly what the draft order is, they know where everybody's picking, and then they have maybe more certainty if they do a trade, at that point.
Separate fact from fiction with the importance of landing DeMarcus Cousins with the Lakers. Was that a priority number one that cost Mitch Kupchak and Jim Buss?
It was not getting Cousins was not what sped up their ouster there. It was more that I was told that the fact that Magic, Jeannie Buss were kept out of the loop over the weekend, that they weren't as aware that Buss and Kupchak went in and did those discussions with Sacramento, really without looping in, Magic, Jeannie. And part of what Jeannie Buss had tried to set up in the short term was, Magic would come in as a consultant or to oversee whatever you wanted to call it. But they wanted Mitch and Buss to work with him and then see if there was a way they could work together going forward. And when they felt like those guys hadn't included them in the conversation, hadn't really been open to including Magic into what they were doing, that sped up the decision Jeannie made to dismiss everybody.
What was the alleged second deal, the better deal that Sacramento couldn't, see through to fruition that Vlade was talking about?
I can't sit here with certainty and tell you it even existed. I don't know what it is, and I can't tell you with certainty that it even existed.
Yeah, that's what I was told, and then I thought, well, is Vlade sort of backing away from the car accident, saying that he wasn't driving? That was the feeling I got, but in fairness to him, I wanted to know what was this so-called better deal that you had to turn down?
Well, it just doesn't make sense to me. Dan, if they had a better deal, then why didn't they do the better deal? I'm confused by it, and no one there and no one anywhere else, any other teams I've talked to, has told me any specifics. I haven't spent a lot of time they did the deal they did. I haven't spent a lot of time trying to find out, but
okay.
I'm trying to get the next one that might happen. But I'm not so sure. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth. I just don't know what it is, and I have not had any other team that I've talked to tell me that they were down the road like that with Sacramento.
How big is the number one pick in this year's draft? How important?
It's really significant. I mean, there's a couple point guards that have franchise potential, and different teams might value that pick differently. Might have whether it's Fultz at Washington or Lonzo Ball at UCLA. Those teams have different views of. Different teams might have a different view of how valuable it is. But getting that pick this year, it can speed up your rebuild. If you're an Indiana, if you're a Chicago, and you want to rebuild your team, go into, go young, that can speed up the process, and that's why it has so much value.
Are you checking your text messages while I'm talking to you?
I just had 2 GMs call me back to back, but I don't think it looks like they're just, hey, what's up, what's going on calls, not I've got a trade call, so we're okay.
Well, can you tell the difference?
Yeah, because I have this new audio thing where it tapes, where you get the visual of the voice message.
The transcript?
You can see the transcript. That's a real help for me. I don't know how I got it in my phone, but somehow it showed up, and it's pretty good at knowing who you have to call back right away. Usually someone will call, then they'll text and say, hey, call me. Then I would have to hang up, Dan. But we're good. We're going to keep going.
Okay, so that written transcript, without telling me who it's from, is just saying, what's up?
Here, I'll read it for you.
Okay.
What's going on, man? I was just touching base right now to talk to you. I mean, that's sort of, sometimes it's not exactly. It's like, sometimes it's like the word refrigerators. The transcription's not always exact, but we're all right. And they're like 4, 5, 6 second messages. So there's nobody, it's just, hey, call me back. So, yeah, that's it.
What happens 3 hours from now? 6 hours, I should say.
Well, I just think teams like, teams that have to make a decision on what they want to do that have been real active. Minnesota, Ricky Rubio is very much in play. Will Tom Thibodeau bring back Derrick Rose, bring him back to him? He obviously he had him in Chicago. Rubio is, they've made calls and they've offered him around here the last really few weeks. Detroit's got some decisions to make. I think there's a lot of, I think the question for a lot of teams is, I don't know that there's many people out there who think, I don't know if there's anybody who thinks they're one player away from, catching Golden State in the West. I don't know if anybody thinks they're 2 players away. So this decisions, I think Toronto's got some hard choices because, they've bringing in Serge Ibaka, they're going to have to pay him significantly going forward. They're kind of getting all in Toronto now. They have some interest in PJ Tucker, who could help them off their bench. He's in Phoenix. So I think you're going to look at Boston and Toronto's got to look at Boston and see what they do today and say, do we need to match something Boston does as we're all trying to close the gap on Cleveland? But in the West, the Clippers would love to do something. They just don't have the assets. They don't have picks. They don't have really tradable players to go out and do something significant. But the Clippers would like to do something around the edges.
All right, I know you're busy, and we appreciate you joining us. Thanks for the pronunciation there, and smack Chris Mannix for us if you can.
Outstanding. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it, man.
All right, that's Woj, Adrian Wojnarowski.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.